beauties, it's Ari T. As you can probably deduce from the title, I want to talk to you today about hair porosity. And I find that this is something that doesn't come up in conversation frequently. And when we're talking about our journeys and if we're stuck in a rut where we feel like our hair isn't growing or it's just perpetually dry, we talk about things like how frequently we're deep conditioning, trimming our ends, how thick our hair is, how elastic our hair is, or how brittle our hair is, or if our hair is protein sensitive. But we don't ever get to that next conversation, which is about hair porosity, which affects so much of how your hair behaves and how well it maintains moisture. So that's actually the definition of hair porosity. It's how well your hair is able to attract moisture and retain moisture. There are different levels of porosity. You have low porosity, normal porosity, and high porosity hair strands. So you may already know this, but your hair strand is made up of multiple layers. The inner layer is the cortex that actually is supposed to absorb moisture. And on the very outside, on top of everything, is your cuticle. And your cuticle is supposed to lay flat against your hair strand to keep moisture in. So if you have normal porosity, your hair strand looks kind of like this. Imagine this is your inner cortex and the multiple layers. And then this hand is your actual cuticle. So if you have normal hair, your cuticle is just slightly lifted, and it's really pretty simple to get your hair wet, to moisturize it, and it's pretty easy to seal in moisture so that it can't get out. If your hair is low porosity, that means that your cuticle is already laying flat to your hair without any type of manipulation from you. Now this is good because it does help to retain moisture. However, it's harder to moisturize because you have to lift the cuticle first. Because since it's laying flat, this internal layer is harder for water and different products to penetrate it unless you lift that cuticle layer up. Okay? And if your hair is high porosity, then your cuticle is very lifted. Some people are born with high porosity hair, so their cuticle is always lifted. When your hair becomes damaged hair does have lifted cuticles, but the lifted cuticles are usually frayed and broken off. And the problem with that is that those frayed and broken off cuticles can catch on other hair strands and cause even more damage. And as you can imagine, that's the type of thing that thins out your ends and causes you to have to get major haircuts. How do you tell what hair porosity you have? There's a really, really simple test. If you take one of your shed hairs and you place it into a glass of water, preferably a clear glass of water, and set it on top of the water, and then step away for about 4 minutes, and then come back and see what happened to the hair strand. If your hair is normal porosity, it will have sunken down below the surface of the water a little bit, but it's still floating. If your hair is low porosity, your hair strand is going to be floating at the top of the water, maybe just below it. If your hair is high porosity, your hair strand will have sunken all the way down to the bottom. So let's talk about that. If your hair is high porosity, so you did the strand test, your hair sunk down to the bottom of the glass, what do you do to help retain moisture and to make sure that your hair is very well conditioned? One thing that you can do is use a protein conditioner with heat. So why does this work? Well, what protein conditioners do is actually stick to the hair strand. So what it's going to do is, again, if this is your hair strand and this is the cuticle, the protein fills in the gap between the cuticle and the actual inner cortex. So it fills in that gap, which helps them to retain moisture. And applying the heat really, really helps it to bond and fill in that gap for you. Another thing that you'll want to do is after you've conditioned your hair and you're ready to rinse it out, rinse with cold water. You'll see me do this in my hair washing regimen that video that I just did. I mentioned that I rinse with very, very cold water. And what that does is it shocks the hair, which helps the cuticle to lay flatter. When it comes to products for high porosity hair, employing the LOC method is perfect. That method was actually designed by someone with high porosity hair. So it really, really does work. If that's the type of hair that you have, it will work for you. So what it is LOC. L is liquid, O is oil, C is cream or a butter-based product. So liquid is any product that has water as the first ingredient on the ingredients label. Put that on your hair first. Then you want to use a penetrating oil. All right, so since your cuticle is lifted, you've used the water-based product. It went right into that inner cortex. You used a penetrating oil. Penetrating oils are olive oil or coconut oil. And what they'll do is they'll go right into that inner cortex and get it nice and moisturized. And then it also helps to seal it just a little bit, but then when you use that heavy cream or butter, that's really going to help the cuticle to lay much flatter. It's going to fill in that gap for you, and your hair is going to retain moisture and stay soft for a longer period of time. If your hair is normal porosity, you'll know because after you did the strand test, your hair strand sunk just a little bit below the surface and then kind of stopped somewhere in the middle. So it's just normal porosity. And again, it looks something like this. You have your inner cortex and then your cuticle is just slightly lifted. So all that you want to do is make sure that you're applying gentle styling techniques to make sure that this normal porosity doesn't become high porosity or damaged cuticles. Okay? So the things that you can do are really, really simple. Wash your hair with warm water, condition your hair, and rinse with cold water. And that'll probably be perfect for you. You can do protein treatments if you have fine hair. The protein will not overly harden your hair. So that's something that you can do if you find that your hair is too mushy. A protein treatment is fine for normal porosity hair. And it's also recommended if you have normal porosity hair and fine strands, then protein treatments are really going to help to make your hair softer and a lot stronger as well. So if you have low porosity hair, like me, that means when you put your hair strands in the glass of water, it just floated right on top and didn't really sink and just kind of hung out. So things that you can do to make sure that you're moisturizing your hair. Since your cuticle is laying flat, you need to employ techniques that are going to lift the cuticle so that your water-based products can penetrate and get into that inner cortex. So things that you can do, wash your hair with really warm water. In my hair washing routine video, I showed you I wash my hair with really warm water so that my cuticle will lift so I can get the dirt out, but then also get the water in there so it can be moisturized. And then another thing that you're going to want to do is to, after you condition your hair, rinse with really cold water. I mentioned this already, but it works. So when you rinse in with really cold water, it shocks the hair and helps the cuticle to lay flat again. When it comes to products for low porosity hair, you need to use light products because since your cuticle is already laying flat, if you are using heavy products, all you're doing is building product on top of product on top of product. It's not getting into that inner cortex like you were intending it to. This is why I don't like to use gel on my hair very frequently because it gives me crazy product buildup. So what you can do is just use light products like hair milks, use light oils like olive oil, and steam your hair. The steam lifts the cuticle. It allows you to re-moisturize it through the water vapor from the humidifier, and then you can just seal it back up again with your light product and oils. So it's pretty simple, but if you're not employing those techniques, your hair is just going to be perpetually dry, have perpetual buildup on your hair. If you do love using gel and heavy products on your hair, you're just going to need to wash it more frequently or steam it more frequently so that you can effectively re-moisturize it. Protein treatments are not necessarily going to help you out because, as I was saying before, protein bonds to your hair. If you're bonding proteins to hair that already has a cuticle that's laying flat, it's going to make it very rigid. And so then when you try to move your hair around, it's going to snap. I just did a lot of talking. If you guys have anything to add, leave them below. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. If you're new to my channel, it's great getting to know you. Thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.